Coach Rosenbury, thank you for joining me. Is currently the head coach at Kenyon College here in Ohio. Coach, if you wouldn't mind kind of giving a quick background intro about yourself, please.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me today. I really appreciate it. So I'm originally from Salt Lake City, Utah, born and raised, and still have most of my family back there. Coming out of high school, I was a pretty good football player, probably a better student, and so I wanted to find, a great fit, probably the best academic school that I could get into. So for me, that was actually a school out in Cleveland, Ohio, called Case Western Reserve University. So went out to Case to be an engineer and play football. Unfortunately, my math and my science weren't as good as I thought they were, and I switched my major pretty quickly over to sociology and psychology, and I was on the pre-law track. Um, Football didn't really come into the equation for me for a while in college. I took my LSATs my junior year, did well enough to get into a couple law schools, so that was kind of the path I was on. Wasn't until senior year that I got asked to help with spring practices, and it went well, and they invited me back in the fall. At that time, I decided I was going to take a gap year between my undergrad and law school. And so I came back. I was working for a couple buddies who had started a book company and was coaching part-time running backs at Case. And I fell in love with it. It was never the plan for me, but 13 years later, I'm here and I'm loving every minute of it. But I stayed at Case for 3 seasons. We had a lot of success there. I think we went 31-3 in the 3 years I was there. I can say it had nothing to do with me. We just had some great coaches and some great players. But luckily our head coach was good about saying, you got to go see how they do it somewhere else. So I headed west to Grinnell College in Iowa and was there for a year. Basically helped rebuild the program there. The year before they were 2-8 and we went 6-4. Honestly, we probably should have gone 7-3, but we had a game where we turned the ball over 8 times. Never going to win a game that way. So, but we had a great season, went 6-4. And then I decided, I really wanted to get serious about it. So I headed even further west to the University of Redlands in Southern California, where I was a graduate assistant and got my master's degree in higher education. Had a chance to learn from a really great head coach, Mike Maynard, who has won over 200 games in his career at Redlands. So he kind of built Redlands from the ground up. And so I got to see what it took to not only build the program, but sustain it at a very high level. When I was there, we went 14-5. We went to the NCAA playoffs my first year. It was great experience. Got my master's in higher education and then headed. Case came back and said, hey, we want to hire you as a full-time coach. So went back to Cleveland for 2 years, got a chance to coach, be the JV offensive coordinator, assistant recruiting coordinator, assistant special teams coordinator, and coach, running backs, fullbacks, some outside linebacker as well. And then got a full-time coordinator job at McAllister College in St. Paul, Minnesota, where I was for 4 years. Did a little bit of everything, coached special teams, running backs, tight ends, O-line, football ops. And I think that really prepared me for the head coaching job here in Kenyon, which I've been at now for a little over a year. I started in April of 2019. So that's a little bit about my background.
Awesome, Coach. You kind of mentioned some of your special teams time in there, but you were also offensive line coach at one point. How did being an offensive line coach and a special teams coordinator prepare you to become a head coach at Kenyon?
I think, with being an O-line coach, it's very, any O-line coach can attest to this. Being an O-line coach is very detail oriented. And to be a good head coach, I think you have to be able to be able to focus on the details. Same with special teams. Special teams, the difference between a made extra point and a missed extra point can be, a wrong step by your kicker, plant foot's, maybe a 2 degrees off, or, the operation time is 0.2 seconds too slow. So it's just, both are very detail oriented. And the nice thing about being the special teams coordinator is you get to work with pretty much every player at every position, with a few exceptions here or there, obviously. But I think those two things really helped me, to prepare to be a head coach, as well as, the football ops, organizing travel, organizing meals and different things. So it was all great preparation to be the head coach here at Kenyon.
Now, during your first year as the head coach at Kenyon, what did you learn the most about how to run a program, about structuring your staff, etc.?
I think the biggest takeaways from this season were that there is always room for improvement. You always have to be open to new ideas and new ways of thinking. And I think for me, one of the things that I learned a long time ago that I really put into practice was you have to be able to hire great people and allow them to do their job, give them the ability to succeed. So, for example, this year I didn't call an offensive play, a defensive play, a special teams play. Coach Lehendro, our special teams coordinator, may disagree with you there. I had a little bit more influence there, but basically, I said, listen, here's what I want to do. Here's the pieces we have to do it. Go build an offense. Go build a defense. Go build special teams. And they went and did it, and they did an amazing job. And I tried to do my best to just empower them. We met every week and talked about different things that I saw and gave them my suggestions, but ultimately, they were making the calls, and I was there for the big picture stuff. We go for it on fourth down. Are we going to block this kick? Are we going to kick the field goal? Things like that. But I think hiring a good young staff is something that I'm really glad I did, because they were malleable and they were hungry and they had new ideas, and they thought outside the box. I think all of those things were things I learned and built on. And I think also, trying to be as honest and transparent with your players as possible, so they can understand why you're doing what you're doing. They don't have to agree with you, and many times they won't, but at least they understand the why behind it. And with working with high academic kids that we do at Kenyon, the why is important. So I think a combination of all those things, and I'm learning something new every day, especially during these times. So I don't know, most head coaches will tell you, I'll never be done learning. It's a profession and a position where you're just constantly getting new information and learning new things.
All right, Coach. Kind of, what were your biggest challenges this year as you transitioned from being an assistant head coach, especially with a program that historically, at least recently, hasn't had much success?
So I think the first thing was getting the players to believe in themselves again. I came into a situation where we had lost 26 games in a row when I got here. And many people would see that as a deterrent. But to me, I saw it as an opportunity to literally build a program from the ground up in whatever way I saw fit. And so the first thing I did was when I got the job, I got on the phone with all of our seniors and talked about, tell me about your experience. What has it been like here at Kenyon for you? And I came away with that. They were passionate about football. They love football. They love their teammates. They love playing the game, but they didn't necessarily love showing up every day for practice because they were terrified to fail instead of being excited to succeed. So giving them that joy and that passion again, and getting them, excited to do big things on the field. I think those things really helped. I also think, when I got here, the football program was the only program here that hadn't had success. And so I wanted to figure out why was that. And I figured out for a long time, Kenyon football had tried to make the college fit it instead of the other way around. And Kenyon's been around since 1824, so that's not going to work. So we realigned our goals and our mission to fit the athletic department and the college so that we were all working toward the same goals in the same direction. And it's amazing how quickly things change. So a combination of all those things. And I think, we missed on some things. There's still things we can do a lot better. And that's why I'm so excited, about next year and the years coming moving forward, because I think we've only scratched the surface on how good we can be.
Coach, what advice would you give to those coaches, high school or college, that take over a struggling program, that haven't won ever or in a while, especially those guys who are going to be first-year head coaches?
Yeah, I think the first thing, from a schematic standpoint, figure out what your players are good at. And it may honestly be something that maybe you're not fully comfortable with, but if you don't have the personnel to run what you want to run, you're not going to be good at it. So figure out what your players are good at and then run that. For us, we run, four-man front. We run a lot of spread, 1-2 tight end sets. Special teams wise, we've got guys that are maybe not the fastest in the world, but they're really intellectual. So you can do some different things. You can be a little bit more advanced schematically because they can pick it up pretty quickly. So you just have to find out, number one, what are your players good at, and then run that and run it to the best of your ability. I think, as a head coach, what I've learned is you have to be flexible, because I came into a situation where, I said, oh, I want to do things this way, this way, this way. And some of them, I stand firm on. But others, you have to learn the school, you have to learn the players, you have to learn the environment, and then adapt accordingly. So that's another thing. And then we all get into coaching, at least I hope we all get into coaching, to enhance our players' lives, to give them a great experience on the field, in the classroom, in their personal lives. And so I think, why I coach, my why, is to give our student athletes an opportunity to come to a great school like Kenyon, but give them a great experience in football, and see that they're the best students they can be, and that they're the best people they can be. So those are the big things.
Awesome, Coach. And then, kind of as we start wrapping up, what have you spent this off season studying or learning more about to help your program, whether it be off the field, on the field, both?
Yeah, so we've done some schematic stuff. The nice thing about this is with Zoom and with the technology, you can connect to a lot more coaching staffs and have more discussions, X's and O's and things like that. So there's been some of those discussions, but a lot of it has been around, how we practice, tempos, practice planning, program stuff, development stuff. How can we make our players better people? How can we help them deal with some of the social issues that are going on in this world right now? And so we've looked at a lot of those things, and we've started to kind of change some things based on, what our players want. What do they want to get out of their experience? Because I think that's important too. I've had a chance to have a lot of conversations with different sports performance directors from different sports. I have a good friend who is the head of sports performance for the New England Revolution. So talking about how professional teams do, have their week of practice, how they build, and then how they also, build in rest periods and things like that. So how can we practice more efficiently and be as close to 100% for Saturdays as possible? Those are the big things that I've kind of looked at. And I know our coaches, they've been doing Zoom sessions with, everybody and anybody across the country, just talking X's and O's with them. So it's like I said, I got a hungry young staff, and they want to do that stuff. It's great. And then I can focus on program stuff.
Awesome, Coach. Actually, during that, you kind of gave me another question is, do you have a leadership council? And then if you do, what do you do to help develop leadership with your leadership council?
Yeah, we do. So we have, the way we do it is we'll have our 4 captains. We vote for 2 in the spring, right after spring practices, and then we'll vote for 2 more toward the end of camp. And then that'll give us 4. And then at the end of camp, we also vote for our leadership council. And the way we do it is we go 2 or 3 from each class. So 2 first years, 2 sophomores, 2 juniors, 2 seniors. Sometimes there's 3 depending on how the voting falls. And basically what I tell them is I give them the standard that they need to live up to. And I say, this is not for everybody. I don't just thrust it upon them. I say, are you willing to be a part of this? If you are, here are the expectations. And then we meet usually once a week, and we talk about pretty much everything and anything that the coaches are talking about, with some exceptions, obviously. But we fill them in on what's going on in the program. I ask their advice on certain situations that arise within the team, how they want to handle it as a leadership council. I think what we'll do more of this year is we'll probably have the leadership council will have like a disciplinary council, where if a guy breaks a team rule, they'll go to the leadership council, and obviously I'll have the final say on it, but I want to get players' input so they have more buy-in, and that way, if something happens, we can have 12 heads thinking about it instead of just me and the coaches, because I think that's important that they have some say in what goes on in the program, because ultimately it is their program.
How involved are your assistants with that leadership council in terms of being at the meetings, and how much leeway do you give them with that?
Yeah, so basically it's when I meet with the leadership council, it's just me and the council, But I take notes. I've got this little black book right here that I basically write everything down in, and so I'll take notes from the meeting, and then I'll go back and we'll sit and I'll discuss it with the staff and say, here's what so and so said, here's what we're dealing with. So they're involved, but they're not actually in the meetings with me. That may change with we're forming that disciplinary committee for the team. That may change. Maybe having a couple more coaches in there. We're also thinking about pulling in people from different parts of campus to help out with that, so that we start to create more connections with the different parts of campus, the different divisions, committees, things like that, because I think it's important. That's something that we struggled with in the past as well. We hadn't been connected to campus. There hadn't been buy-in there from campus. I think we had a ton of buy-in from athletics, but football had kind of isolated itself for a long time, and so we're trying to build those bridges right now.
Okay, and then Coach, do you have any final thoughts on something we talked about, something we didn't talk about? Is kind of the floor is yours, Coach.
Yeah. Well, first of all, again, thank you so much for having me. I think we're living in a very interesting time right now for many reasons, and like I said, I got into this I always knew that when I got into coaching, I wanted to be a head coach at a high academic school like Kenyon, because I love the type of student athletes we recruit here. I love the type of student athletes that come to Kenyon because they're so passionate about football, but they also have passions for medicine, for law, for economics, for political science. And I just love to see that. And they go on and do amazing things. So, I want to continue to build a program and foster an environment where we're not only building great football players, but great students and great young men. So that's kind of the final thing I'll say.
Awesome, Coach. Thank you, and I wish you nothing but success this season.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.